With me tonight, we have Cecil Lammey from 104.3 The Fan, Benjamin Allbright from Broncos Country Tonight, and for the first time, ESPN's Steve Levy, the official voice of Broncos preseason football on KUSA. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Is it safe to say that you're counting down the days until that first preseason game for the Broncos?
Yeah, I'm unique in the fact that I'm sure of the four of us, I'm the only one who on reveal day for the schedule was concerned about the preseason schedule and the first Monday night football game like we had last year. Hope to get a crack at one of those two first Monday night games anyway. It'd be great to do then all five Broncos games. Yes, but according to my fourth grade math, and I've been doing some homeschooling with my soon-to-be 10-year-old daughter, I have it in 84 days until the Broncos' first preseason game. And here's hoping we get to play them all. And, of course, you know, that's certainly up in the air going into week one of the real season.
Well, glad to know that you are actually counting, Steve.
Yes, on my fingers.
Tonight, I figured that we can kind of look at the past, present, and future for the Denver Broncos. So let's go ahead and start with the past. We know last year the Broncos went through three different quarterbacks throughout 2019. They finished the season with a 7-9 record and subsequently missed the playoffs. But thinking back on it, I think there was a lot of good that came from the Broncos 2019 season, beginning with Vic Fangio making his head coaching debut. So what impressed you guys most about Fangio in his first season at the helm? Cecil, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, for me, it's that trust factor that was built with John Elway. I mean, it's clear. I mean, you just see the two together, right? Vic Fangio, John Elway, they're like best friends now. And you saw that trust factor that was built over that first season because Vic Fangio waited a long time for his first head coaching opportunity, and he's not a yes man. I remember when the 49ers had him up and they hired Jim Tomsula and said because he would kind of bow to what the front office wanted him to do. Well, Vic Fangio has his ways of playing football, of coaching football. John Elway and him now on the same page. So we can look at the experience, the time on the sideline. He was mostly in the booth as a defensive coordinator, all except for 1 year. But to me, it's the trust factor that was built between he and John Elway, and now crafting this team together should be even better in 2020 and beyond.
I think it was the evident experience that Vic Fangio had. I hope that Vance Joseph goes on, gets another shot at head coaching and becomes successful, but he was in over his head, and it was very clear, whether it was practices, pressers, or in-game decision-making, and you didn't see that from Vic Fangio. You saw a decisive, prepared coach who came into each situation understanding what was needed and what needed to be done. Now, they didn't always get the win out of it, but they always went for the win, and I felt like that was a vast improvement over the previous staff.
Yeah, and I'll stay with the coaching theme as well. And this is not to remove the blame of a losing season and an awful start right off the players' backs, because players did not perform up to expectations offensively and defensively. And yes, you know, there were injuries, but team depth is something every NFL team has to deal with. But Fangio did provide what I thought was a calming influence. I remember one of the highlights of the preseason of our conversations, and he's not a laugh out loud kind of guy, but the fact that he was concerned about where to actually stand on the sideline. That was the biggest question he kind of had. So, I haven't asked him, maybe you guys have. I'm not sure there was a lot to learn for him, even as a first-year head coach, because he'd been around and seen everything. But I think he was a calming influence right from the very start. Those practices, the no music, all business, those kinds of things. And listen, I think when you break down the season, it comes to, got off to a brutal start to the season and simply did not score enough points. I thought it was very odd from the beginning, a first-time play caller ever in Scangarello with the offense, with the veteran of Joe Flacco. I never really sort of understood that mix. And obviously, there's been big changes in both of those categories coming into this season.
Well, coming off a pretty serious wrist injury, Phillip Lindsay came back and he recorded another 1,000-plus yard season with pretty similar numbers to his Pro Bowl-worthy rookie campaign. So why was it so critical for Phillip Lindsay to kind of have that season that he did?
Yeah, he didn't want to show that year one was a fluke. He wanted to show that he could do it again. His numbers were similar. They were a little bit down, but very, very similar to what he did as a rookie when he splashed onto the scene. And for the second year in a row, and he beats out Royce Freeman for that starting job. And it's very critical for him to continue to do that now with even more competition with Melvin Gordon, who I know we'll talk about in this show. But with Phillip Lindsay, it was just about proving that he could be that guy from the jump, stay healthy. Everyone talks about his size. Everyone talks about his durability. Okay, well, he had the wrist surgery now 2 off seasons in a row, but he came back, he played all the games, and he started well for the Broncos. It was important for him to do that.
Anytime you're that kind of size, you're going to get that knock against you, fair or not, that perception of health, that perception of injury risk, whatever. And, while Phil Lindsay is actually really about the same size as Warrick Dunn, he still gets those knocks on him all the time. And I think that's what it was, coming back and reestablishing himself and saying, hey, look, I'm a consistent runner. Don't worry about my size, worry about my productivity, and look what I'm putting up on the board.
Likability off the charts, too. Remains a great guy to root for. Maybe no one benefits more from what the Broncos have acquired on the outside than what Lindsay will be able to do. And I think there's even more of a reason to get him touches catching the football, especially on third down, out of the traffic, out of the backfield, to make him even more explosive. He's the guy on the team, really, that, every time he touches the ball, he can break.
Well, speaking of catching the football, wideout Courtland Sutton racked up more than 1,100 yards, 400 more than his rookie season with 3 different quarterbacks. Steve, what does that say about what Courtland Sutton is really capable of?
I think he's capable of much more. I think that what he's shown, we have to remember he is still a young player in this league, and now he's very quickly a guy who walked in as the kid and was the little brother to everyone in that wide receivers room, and now he's kind of the old man. I mean, it's amazing. And that is the NFL in a snapshot, right? That is how quickly the league changes, the personnel from team to team. And now he's really going to be the veteran influence there. No Emmanuel Sanders, no DT anymore. Those are guys sort of brought him along. And now he's got a big job. But with that comes expectations. If you're going to be, the man in that wide receivers room, he's got a lot of explosive young talent around him, and I think that's going to keep him on edge too, and that'll push him. But the familiarity with hopefully having only one quarterback and getting those reps together from the very start, whenever they can really start. I mean, you would have to think Sutton puts up those kind of numbers, if not even more.
Well, that should be scary for the rest of the league, to be honest with you. You look at what Courtland Sutton was able to do with Brandon Allen and the ghost of Joe Flacco out there throwing him the football, and then nothing opposite him. Teams were doubling him at times, doubling him in rolling coverage over the top, and he was still able to produce. The fact that Noah Fant has started to come into his own. You've added a Jerry Jeudy. You've added a KJ Hamler over on the other side that's going to take attention away and get him more one-on-ones. That should be scary. I mean, Courtland Sutton is just coming into his own, moving from athlete to wide receiver. Sky is really the limit. You could see a top 7, top 5 wide receiver.
Well, I'm contractually obligated to say this, and everybody say it with me. Tip of the iceberg, everyone.
We know, Cecil.
I know when it comes to Courtland Sutton. But I look at the advanced data, and I look at the off-target percentage. I mean, it's god-awful for Joe Flacco, and it was bad for Brandon Allen as well. Drew Lock was better. He was more accurate. His pass placement was better. But what it shows to me is, no matter where the ball is placed, it's that my ball mentality that Sutton has always had dating back to his days at SMU, and scouts really noted that. That's why I call him the steal of the draft in that season. And, now this year with the better chemistry with Locke, with the leadership in that locker room, he truly is one of the young leaders on this team and should continue to build on that statistical production.
Well, I will say the greatest part about 2019 is that Drew Lock got his shot, but we will not talk about that right now. We will talk about that a little bit later in the show. Coming up after the break, we will review the current state of the Denver Broncos. You won't want to miss it.